For what purpose does the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey, rise?
Mr. President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator, has the floor.
Mr. President, a moment ago, my colleague from Rockingham talked about the administration of honest government and transparency in government, and I'd like to continue on that theme, but in a different vein. This involves what I think is a lack of administration of honest government and a lack of transparency, and I'm sad to say that it involves an agency that is run by Democrats. You may recall 2 or 3 weeks ago, we've gone on so long, sometimes it blends together. I was speaking about SB 5120. I believe it was Senator Ruff's bill. I could be wrong, but it dealt with the lack of professionalism by the State Board of Elections. It involved sloppiness, and I brought out the fact that the State Board of Elections was required by law to complete voter maintenance lists within 90 days of an election. And I pointed out that they didn't do that, and their response was, and they're mandated to do so by law, and I pointed out that they said, oops, I'm sorry, we didn't get to it. I'll try harder. Think of all the laws that we pass involving state police, universities, our own behavior, the behavior of the general public. Can you imagine, would we tolerate for a moment if we passed a law and we allowed them to say, I'm sorry, I forgot, or I'm not going to abide by it? Well, after I gave that, one of my colleagues gave me I think it's 70-odd pages. It was a report prepared by JLARC, and it's titled Operations and Performance of Virginia's Department of Elections. And it's dog-eared because I've gone through it a couple of times. And it shows a complete and utter lack of respect for the JLARC study by the current Department of Elections. And I looked at the time to see who was on it. Our Senator Norman was the chair. Members included Senators Hanger, Howell, McDougal, and Ruff. And this JLARC study is a scathing report on the doings of the Department of Elections, including the current department. This 2018 study, which was conducted for us, stated the following: that the Virginia Department of Elections, which I'll refer to as VDE, does not utilize all available data sources to maintain accurate voter rolls. That the state system that is used to maintain those voter lists is long overdue and needs to be replaced. That system, as you all know, is called VERIS. In its recommendation to us, it said that VERIS needs to be replaced and that VDE has yet to replace the software, even though State Department of Elections is being provided $1 million a year. $1 million a year, and they still haven't replaced it. Now local registrars are having to deal with an outdated and broken system during a health pandemic. They went on to say that VDE does not adequately oversee local operations, which is causing a lack of uniformity in electoral operations. They said that VDE has 3 appointed positions, including the chairman, former delegate Robert Brink, more than any other agency in the state. As you know, these positions change with each new administration. Here's what they said. This is leading to a lack of strategic leadership, inadequate management, and political interference and bias at VDE. The study clearly stated that VDE continues to be susceptible to political influence. Now, if that doesn't scare everybody in here, it should. And it doesn't make a difference if it's run by Republicans or Democrats. It happens to be run by Democrats right now. But for this study that we pay for and we receive to say that VDE continues to be susceptible to political influence is scary to me. Go on, they're not done. Said the registrars are not being given sufficient guidance from VDE related to the update of certain databases for the electoral system. In April, Powhatan Registrar Karen Alexandra publicly admonished VDE for their lack of guidance and coordination to local registrars. The registrar said, "We feel very much left in the dark with the number of unknowns that we are facing." And did I mention there's an election coming up? There are now reports across Virginia that due to the lack of preparedness and communication from VDE, Virginia Department of Elections, to local registrars, Virginians are being sent duplicate ballots. Now, this is precious. I read one of the registrars, and this is a registrar in Richmond, where I represent. 300 duplicate ballots were sent out. Duplicate as in somebody who requests an application is giving 2 ballots. It's not right. And Registrar Showalter said that due to the delays caused by a legal dispute between artist Kanye West, who had mounted an independent bid for president, she said that in some cases it resulted in some 300 voters receiving duplicate ballots. In other words, because they were focused on Kanye West, they sent out 300 duplicate ballots. And then said, and I'm quoting, this is the precious part, "In my office's enthusiasm to make sure every voter got a ballot, they made sure a few voters got 2 ballots." Let me read that again. This is her quote. "In my office's enthusiasm to make sure every voter got a ballot, they made sure a few voters got 2 ballots." Well, number one, it's not an enthusiasm to get a ballot. It is a duty. It is an obligation. It is a responsibility by law that you get a ballot. Just one. And then she goes, quote, "We apologize to anyone who got more than 1 ballot." The wrong folk you're apologizing to. How about the other 8.1 million people whose voting is being diluted because another small segment got duplicate ballots? Completely misunderstands her role. But going back to my original point, it doesn't matter which party is in control. It just happens to be that the Democrats are in control right now of the Department of Elections, and there's bias and influence, and it's wrong. And I mentioned to my colleague, Senator Norman, that if we have a JLARC study done, and it comes to us, and we see all these defalcations in the Department of Elections, we have to do something about it, or simply take JLARC and get rid of it. Why spend the money on that department and those reports if we don't do something about it? So, with that said, it bothers me immensely that the demands and dictates and suggestions that were outlined in this 2018 report weren't followed by the Department of Elections. And by the way, if you go by their office, ain't many lights on at 5:30. We often stay here till midnight. We follow the law. Can you imagine if a judge issued a discovery order and said, you have to do this in a certain time? Oops, I forgot. Or if a police officer issued a directive to a subordinate, oh, I forgot. Or a doctor told a nurse in an operating room, you do this. Oh, I'm sorry, but that's what we're allowing them to do unless we act upon it. I already showed a few weeks ago that they didn't follow the law, and an oops isn't satisfactory. Now we're showing that 2 years, almost 2 years later, they haven't made the requisite improvements, even though we're giving them how much a year? $1 million. So with that, Mr. President, I would say that while I feel somewhat better that I have vented regarding the defalcations of this organization controlled by Democrats, it's not going to be satisfactory until we do something about it. And if I was the head of government, if I was the titular head of Virginia government, if I was His Excellency, the governor, I wouldn't tolerate people not obeying the law in a state agency, and I would fire them if they didn't do it. I suggest that 24 months to get their ship in order is enough. Thank you.
That was their